All right, everybody, welcome to the Stronger You Project, episode number 5. And I am honored to be sitting here with a guy named Tanner Mortenson. Tanner's a 23-year-old hockey player from the Calgary, Alberta. He spent the majority of his minor hockey playing in Calgary before making the big move to Wilcox, Saskatchewan to attend a very well-known Notre Dame hockey program. He spent much of his time playing with Notre Dame in the SJHL, but played in the BCHL, the MJHL, and the MJAHL, where he ended up in the SJHL with the Estevan Bruins. Tanner's mental health and alcohol abuse started to take its toll during his junior career, and last November started to share his story in hopes of helping others. Tanner also completed a fundraiser this past August for the CMHA Calgary region, where he rollerbladed all the way across Alberta, which is over 700 kilometers in 5.5 days, raising funds and awareness for mental health and substance use. Tanner, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's a pleasure to have you here. And 700 kilometers, man, on rollerblades. It's quite the
Yeah,
feat.
thanks for having me.
5.5 days.
Yeah, it was I don't know, it was crazy. I got asked a lot about how long they thought it would take me, and I've never done something like that, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint how long it's going to take. So initially I thought it would take me a week, and I actually wasn't even going to go across Alberta to begin with. I was actually going to go from Calgary to Banff and back, and I had a goal of raising 3,500 just because the way the kilometers worked out, it was about 350 kilometers total, and we were almost at our goal in 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm a little bit greedy, but in a positive way, obviously. And I thought, well, maybe I can double my original distance if I hit my goal, and I'll go across the province. So we hit that goal in a little over a month, and then that made things come to fruition that we were going to go across Alberta, starting at the BC border west of Lake Louise, and then make our way all the way from there to Banff, Canmore, Calgary, Strathmore, Bassano, Brooks, Medicine Hat, all the way to the Saskatchewan border. And yeah, 5.5 days. I took one day off. I think it was the 20th or 21st of August, just because my billets from Estevan were going to come up and support me and cheer me on the last little push I had for the rollerblade, but no, it was super cool.
Oh, man, that's amazing. How much did you end up raising in total?
We were a little over 6,300, which is pretty amazing considering my original plan was 3,500. A lot of stuff went into that. A lot of sponsors. I had a couple opportunities to do some new stuff, which really promoted the whole reason why I was doing the rollerblade to begin with. So there was like strangers donating to the cause and people I don't even know helping out just because you and I both know mental health affects everybody in some way or another. And I think it hit home to a lot of people. And that's why I did it, is because I know that there are people struggling and that they do feel like they're voiceless or that there isn't a light at the end of the tunnel. And if I had to be the person to step up and show that, hey, it's okay to talk about stuff and there is light at the end of the tunnel, then I'm happy to do so.
Oh, that's amazing, man. And, since I got in the space of mental health, you start to see who all these strangers that you don't know that come out of the woodworks and like, hey, I'll support you. Absolutely. And, they really support what you're doing because they really care. They know they deal with it personally. They have someone else that deals with it, and it's a really incredible thing that you did. And 6,300 is, it's quite the feat. But it goes back to you're talking about everybody struggles with their mental health, and now you did this trip for a reason, and you did it because you struggled with your mental health, which I'm gonna guess it ultimately led to substance use. Now, why don't you take everybody back there and start talking about where it kind of went wrong, but like what did you use kind of growing up at all, or did it kind of just come at you?
Yeah. Excuse me. I come from a very loving household. My mom and dad provided me with endless opportunities. In my intro, you mentioned how I went to Notre Dame. So my parents were willing to do whatever it took for me to, excuse me, reach my goals and what I wanted to do with life. And growing up a Canadian kid, everybody, they want to play hockey, they want to play in the NHL. And my
One sec.
parents,
For the people that don't know what Notre Dame school is, for people who are not Canadian, we Canadians we know if you're a hockey player, you know Notre Dame. But what is Notre Dame school?
Yeah, so it's a private boarding school just south of Regina, about 45 minutes outside of the city. It started back in the day with Per, our founder. It was a bunch of, I guess, bad kids. They got sent to the middle of nowhere in Saskatchewan just for kind of punishment reasons and to keep them out of trouble. And then eventually the program developed and developed, and a lot of really good hockey players have come out of that program, like Morgan Riley, Dylan Dubé, who's currently playing for the Flames, Rod Brendamore, who's coaching for Carolina. Really prestigious hockey program. And I see a lot of these new hockey academies that are popping up all over Canada specifically, and it doesn't compete with Notre Dame. You don't get that type of lifestyle where you eat, breathe, sleep every single day with these people that you go to school with, but then you're also living in the same room together. So it's a really cool opportunity. And my dad actually went there as well. So that's something that was instilled in me since I was a child, is what it takes to be a Hound and what it is going to Notre Dame and how special it can be. And my dad, he went there for the reasons of, keeping him out of trouble, but then also for hockey. But for me, I was never like that. When I was a kid, I was very goal oriented. I had a really good head on my shoulders, and I didn't really start getting into the drinking and partying and stuff until my pre-grad party. When I was at Notre Dame, I knew I was there. I wanted to eventually play junior hockey. I wanted to get a college scholarship, go play D1 somewhere, and then eventually play pro. And I didn't want to be labeled as a troublemaker or get involved in that scene. And especially going to Notre Dame, I had teachers that actually taught my dad when he was there. So it's a pretty small world when you go there and people talk. So I didn't really want stuff like that to get back to my dad. And then I just wasn't interested in it anyways. But yeah, that stuff didn't really start kicking in for me until my pre-grad party. And I was the type of guy who was super shy growing up. And then in high school, I kept to myself. I had my group of people and my friends I was super comfortable with, and I wasn't going to go out of my way to talk to other people. And it wasn't an ignorant thing or rude. It was just, I was genuinely terrified to get out of my comfort zone. And then that first time I drank, it was like a completely different person. And I lowered those walls and I was talking to the girls and I was doing things I normally wouldn't do. And it was like instant, I love this. And I wish I started doing this sooner. Going into my first year junior, I ran into a lot of injury troubles my first year. So I was playing at Notre Dame my first year and I blew out my knee. In grade 12, I blew out my knee. First game of the season, my rookie year, blew out my other knee.
Oh,
And long story short, came back, bad concussion. I got hit along the boards, head hit the glass, don't really remember anything. And then came back from that injury, blew out my knee from grade 12 again. So it was a lot of sitting out and watching hockey and feeling like I'm alone. And then now I'm in a situation or a problem where alcohol and partying is super normalized in junior hockey. And I'm sure you know. And I thought this would be something I could use to mask my emotions and feelings and to kind of just escape from reality. And after that year, I had been at Notre Dame for 4 years, so I thought it'd be a good time for me to make a change and experience something new. Ended up getting traded out to BC to the Merritt Centennials, and this was the season after they finished first in their division. And I had a lot of self doubt just because of all the stuff that happened the season before. But coming in from the SJ to the BC, it's a completely different league. The SJ is more rough and tough. You're gonna get hit when you get the puck, and you better have your head on a swivel. Whereas BCHL is a lot more finesse. I think it's more like a European style of game, and every player in that league is good. Even the
yeah.
bottom end guys, those guys are still good. So I knew I had a lot to prove, but I
So
also
when
had a
you
lot to make up for.
sorry, when you came into the BCHL, so you had three blown knees by that point, like two on one and
Yes,
then one on the
yeah.
other, and then a concussion.
I had some minor concussions growing up, but the season before I had a
Okay.
super bad one. Yeah. But so I had a lot to make up for, obviously, and a
Yeah.
lot to prove just because of everything that happened my rookie year as far as physical injuries for myself. And long story short, some stuff happened when I was in Merritt behind the scenes, and I ended up leaving. And I went out to Manitoba, and I have a lot of buddies just from going to Notre Dame. You meet people from all over the world, and I knew a couple of guys who played for a handful of teams, so I didn't really think anything of it. But when I got to BC, that was my first experience billeting. That was my first experience, not living in a dorm. And I
Mm.
was so used to kind of taking care of myself, and me and my buddies look out for each other. And now I'm living in a stranger's house, and you kind of just walk up to their fridge and help yourself. I thought it was super strange, and I wasn't used to that. Um, and then it's a readjustment period too. I touch on that a lot when I share my story on social media and with different hockey programs. It's a lot of getting used to, and it's super different, especially when it's your first time going through that billet process. Um, and then I went out to Manitoba, and I kind of had to go through that readjustment period again, having to get acclimated to where I'm living, new family I'm staying with, new teammates, new coaches, new town. It's a lot of getting used to things all over again, and it was such a condensed time frame. And during that time, I was not well. I had worked so hard, and I was very dialed in the summer leading into going to Merritt, just because I knew the caliber of hockey I was going to be playing. And now I'm kind of back to the style of play I was playing before out in Western Canada, like the SJ, the MJ, that rough and tough style. And I don't know. I really didn't enjoy my time in Manitoba, and it had nothing to do with the team or anything like that. It's just I wasn't well with myself, and I think I was lacking confidence, and obviously having to get used to things again. It was a lot of stuff going on for me.
Oh, you're moving
Ended
a
up,
lot.
yeah, man. Like it's not easy, and I was still a little bit reserved at that time of my life. I wasn't a chatty Cathy or could strike up a conversation with anybody, but I could get out of that comfort zone a little bit more. And obviously, with team parties and stuff, you kind of branch out a little bit just because the team's there and you're all in that situation of the party scene and all that stuff.
And that was
But
the alcohol taking you out of the comfort zone?
yeah, absolutely. I kind of I don't know, I use that especially in once we get going on a little bit later, when I get out to the East Coast. But in Manitoba, that's kind of when I started to lower my walls a little bit. We had a team party, and I was starting to kind of branch out a little bit just because of the drinking, and it lowers your inhibitions, and you can be somebody or not. And you don't have to guard yourself, I guess you could say. And ended up leaving Manitoba, and then I went out to Nova Scotia. I was playing in the Maritime Junior League, so this all happened in one season. So I literally went from coast to coast in 3 months, I think it was, somewhere around there. And at this point, I didn't really enjoy hockey anymore. Um, I think the business side of the game started to kind of ruin it for me, and I don't know. I think a lot of places tell you things you want to hear, but at the end of the day, you're just a number. Like you're so easily replaceable, and there's always going to be someone who's just as good, if not better, at what you do. And by the time I got out there, it was just like what else is going to happen? I've had to move 3 times, and now I'm on the other side of the country. I don't have a vehicle now, so I'm literally stuck at home all the time. Luckily for me, I had a buddy who was playing out there, so it made the transition a little bit easier. But still, I got 17, 18 other guys I don't know that I have to get used to again, and you kind of got to branch out. You can't stay with one guy all the time. So that was tough. And then obviously, I've never been out there before, and was a little bit different, but I've gotten older, and you reflect on things and you look back on things, and I'm super grateful I got the opportunity to go out there. And if it wasn't for junior hockey, I wouldn't have been able to go out there. And obviously I wish I could have done some things differently when I was out there, because this is a time in my life where I was nonstop at home, night before a game, night before practice, and we practiced in the mornings, and I'd be drinking 2 bottles of wine on a Monday night, and then stealing all my billet dad's beers out of the fridge, and then showing up to practice the next morning smelling like a bottle depot. It was that kind of level it was at, and that before I would never drink before a game just because I was so focused on what I wanted to do, and I wasn't doing well, and I felt lonely. And after that season, it was when COVID started, so we both know how that affected everybody. A lot of alone time, and when you have a problem, that's a lot of time to do your problem by yourself, and no one's around you, no one's going to see you. So I took full advantage of that, and I was drinking nonstop. I had no intentions of playing hockey the following year for my 20-year-old year. And fast forward a couple of months, I was in a position where I was actually working a job considered an essential worker, and we travel around Western Canada cutting cement just for trip hazards and curbs and stuff so little old ladies can't fall on the sidewalk, that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And but we'd party every night, me and my buddy. And that's one thing. No one else's no one else had any impact on my decisions. I can take full responsibility of what I've done. It just so happened it had to be one of my best friends who I was working with, and you work all day, well, we're gonna go out all night. But then we'd get up every morning, we'd go to work, and it was that. And then when we'd come home, I'd be partying every weekend. So just nonstop, I'd say from when I got sent home in March from Nova Scotia all the way to August. I think there's maybe 1 week total I didn't drink in that combined time frame. And I was so twisted in my head that I wanted to stay home and play junior B so I could party and drink and not worry about having to move around, that I was willing to throw away my junior A career just to do that. And oh boy, I think it was last week of August, I got a phone call from Estevan, and they asked me if I'd come out if they acquired me. And I don't know, I don't like living with regrets, and I don't want to be older and think, I wish I did this, or I could have done this and I didn't. So I jumped on it, and I actually wanted to play for that coach my whole junior career. So it was
Oh, cool.
something that I was super looking forward to, and I went out there, and it was the best time ever. If I could have played my whole junior career there, I would have, but obviously I still wasn't doing well, and there's still kind of that lingering effect from the two prior seasons, and we got shut down because of COVID, so we didn't even get to play a full season. I think I played 4 games that year and got sent home, and it was still kind of the same thing, drinking nonstop. And now I'm kind of going through an identity crisis just because your whole life you work to be a hockey player, and that's all you know. And then all of a sudden it's out the window, and I was trying to find myself again. And then I was in a super toxic relationship at that time. And so I was dealing with that. I was dealing with my own head. I was dealing with trying to figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. And I ended up applying at Mount Royal just as a backup plan in Calgary to go to school, and it ended up being my actual plan. I had no desire to play hockey anymore. I think a lot of stuff happened in the 3 years leading up into that time in my life, and went to school. I got sober. I would tell myself all the time when I went out that I'm not going to do this again. And I'm sure that happened with you too, or you wake up the next morning, you feel like garbage, and you're hearing things from people, and that doesn't even sound like me. Like, that's so embarrassing. And every single time, oh, I'm not going to let it happen again. And then next time you go out, exact same thing happens. And then
It
it's just,
it took me 312 Mondays, six
yeah,
years of actively trying to quit for me to finally, give up drugs and alcohol.
yeah,
312. I'm never doing this again, or I'll quit Monday. Like,
yeah,
oh, I got Monday. You know what? Monday I'll do it.
yeah.
All the
No,
stories we tell ourselves.
yeah. And that's what happened with me. I had one night where it just scared the living shit out of me, and I I woke up that morning and I knew, just because my mom was upset. There was some other people upset with me, and yeah, it wasn't like every other time. It was kind of like it was some sort of telltale, or someone was trying to tell me something, and it may sound crazy, but I just knew that morning it was time to stop, because I've tried so much to give it up, and I couldn't, and or to try and, limit the use or how much I would drink when I went out, and I just couldn't. And I finally had accepted that I can't go out and have 2 beers. I'm a 0 or 100 guy. That's the way it is, and I just can't do that to myself anymore. And I started sharing my stuff last November on TikTok. I started sharing my stuff, and then started doing some podcasts and talking to different hockey programs and doing some lives and stuff. And then obviously we talked about my rollerblade. But yeah, I didn't mention one part. I actually so during the COVID time, right before I quit drinking, I wanted to control it. So I was still in the mind frame of, oh, I can limit how much I drink. I don't have a problem. Let's just try and control this. So I it was a weird time in the world, and obviously you know that too. And you couldn't go in person with stuff. Like you couldn't go to therapy in person, especially in the city. So I tried different stuff online. I booked therapy online. I tried singular AA stuff, just one-on-one AA with the counselor, and wasn't working. And I felt like the therapist, they understood the book side of things and maybe the traumatic events and all that kind of stuff, but they didn't understand the hockey stuff.
Mm.
So a big thing for me is I want to talk to somebody who's relatable or somebody who understands my circumstances. So I was very fortunate. I have a former minor hockey coach. He runs a mental health program here in Calgary, Bob Wilkie. Ended up reaching out to him, and I hadn't talked to him since I was in grade 10. Just kind of told him what was going on, and then I wanted to control it, and I still wasn't willing to accept myself that, hey, you have a problem. You can't go out and drink 3 beers. You have 30. And then kind of when I stopped drinking, it was basically myself. I just kind of figured it out on my own that can't do this anymore. And obviously seeing how it's affecting the people around me, I think that's what registered with me the most, because I'm a guy who I care more about the people around me than myself. And that's just the way I was raised. And you always look out for others before yourself. So seeing the impact it was having on my loved ones and my friends, it definitely clicked. And like I said, that morning wasn't like every other morning where I wake up from a night out. It was like a light shining and telling me, "Okay, Tanner, you gotta do it now. Now is the time." So yeah, that's pretty much it, man. That's my story.
Well, I appreciate that, and thank you for sharing all that with me. And I feel you on the hockey part. It's and you do want to have somebody relatable. Like if somebody comes to me for coaching, it's because they see my stuff online. It's because I can relate to them. I've told people, I probably won't be your best coach because I know some stuff, but you'd probably be off with someone that relates to you. And it's when you feel that connection of relatability and of trust, like, okay, this person's been there. Like when I was in rehab, our favorite instructor was a guy who, he quit using and then went to school and became a counselor because you knew that he felt you, he understood you. Not that the other people weren't bad; they were really good at their jobs as well. But you feel a different rapport and connection with the people that have gone through that. Now your sobriety B day is coming up, so I want you to make sure you celebrate that because if you quit last November, you're coming up on your 1 year soon.
Well, I just so yeah, so when I did my rollerblade, I kind of lined it up so the last day would be my 2 year.
Oh,
So
2 years.
I started, yeah, so I started August 15th. I started my rollerblade, and then I made it a week just in case something happened. So the last day would be the 22nd, and it actually worked out that with the day off I included and all that stuff, the day I finished rollerblading across the province was my 2 year sobriety date. So August 22nd was my 2 year.
Oh man, congratulations.
Thank you. I
That's
appreciate it.
that's pretty cool. My first year, I didn't celebrate it because I was like, I was still on that hard on me stage. Oh, congratulations, you quit a substance, good for you, right? Now I make sure that hey, I recognize that day. It's a big day for me, right? And it's
Hmm.
when you lose a lot of time to substances, now you're trying to get it back. Like it's gonna be a while. Like I was 16 years alcohol, 10 years drugs. It's gonna be a while before my sobriety matches my substance use, but I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to that day. Now you're talking about, people understanding in hockey and some of the pressures that come along with hockey players to, play well, to be disciplined. How was your hockey culture on those teams? Were you guys like super disciplined, like nobody really drank, or was it kind of let's get together as a team and let's party?
Yeah, and I kind of experienced all the different leagues too, so I kind of got to see how I wouldn't categorize the whole league, but I mean, I guess it kind of shows for each province. BC was a lot more, I don't know, it was there were certain guys. It wasn't everybody was doing it together, and I wasn't there very long, so I can't really 100% put faith into what I'm saying for that situation. But um, when I was in the SJ playing for Notre Dame, it was a lot of team stuff because it's not a very normal junior program. You're living in a dorm with 20 other guys, and you don't have a billet mom or billet dad. You're kind of looking out for each other, so a lot of time together. And then obviously the older guys, they'd go into the city and stuff and party and go out to the club and stuff. But when I was in Manitoba, same kind of thing. I wasn't there very long, so I can't 100% say this is how it was for there. But when I was there, it was a lot of team stuff. And obviously, I was not doing well there. So I was partying by myself at home in the billet basement and, drinking at home. So that and then East Coast, that was we weren't a great team, and we lived right near Acadia University, so we were out all the time. And then if we weren't out at in Wolfville at Acadia, we were partying in town or at each other's houses, or maybe a group of guys would be partying. And I don't know if that's just the way it is out there. I've had a couple other buddies who played out there, and their experience wasn't the exact same. It was a little bit more tame. I don't know. I think it depends where you are in the standings too. I mean, if you're doing better during the season, you have a lot more to play for, and if you're in the bottom of the basement, it's kind of you're just showing up because you have to at that point, really. And you don't really. I wouldn't necessarily say care, but there isn't those other influences like, oh, we got to push for a playoff spot, or we're a couple points out. We got to be dialed in. When you're out, and you kind of just show up. And during that time, I wasn't 100% dialed in, and I completely stopped working out at that point and almost have given up on myself as a player. And then obviously it's hard to show up every day and go to war with a bunch of guys if you can't say that they're going to do the same thing for you. So,
Mm,
but there's one little comment I'll make is I never experienced that hazing stuff. I never went
okay.
through that, you know, stories like locking all the rookies in the bus naked, and they have to find their way out or find a key or something like that. Like I never was on a team where any of that stuff was happening, which I'm super grateful for. And I played on a lot of teams, and on all the teams I played for, it was a lot of great guys, and some guys I played with longer than others, but I never seen or went through any of that hazing stuff. And I think it is getting better in the hockey community with that stuff. I think stuff still is happening, but fortunate for me, I never experienced or seen any of that stuff.
No, that's good. I do think hockey culture is changing. I noticed that with just the team that we have around here, and you know, my buddy is a billet, and he had kids come over, and they didn't bring to watch the World Junior game. They didn't bring alcohol. They brought uh, bottles of water and an air fryer. He's like, and he looks at me. He's like, man. He's like, I know what. He's like, we never would have done that. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly why I played in the jungle. Because I would have been that guy that brought the beer. Like I still remember, you know, sitting in my billet house, my buddy's billet house, and just craving my first drink. Do you remember when the first time you craved your first you craved it? Like I really want another one.
It was like it was the first time I drank. Like the first time I drank, I'm like, whoa. Like, what can 2 do? What can 3 do? What can 4 do? And I didn't really mention it when I was talking, but my dad had a drinking problem too. So it does run in my genes. And a big thing for me was I remember every time I drank or did something stupid when I was drinking, I just remember hearing my dad's voice, like telling me, you shouldn't do that or be careful. And he'd always warn me and he'd say, just be careful. It runs in your genes. And whatever, dad, I'll be fine. And then once I stopped, like I've talked to him about it, I'm like, you're right. Like everything you said happened to me, everything that you warned me about, I didn't take into consideration and I kind of just brushed it off. But no, the first time I remember craving more and more was the first time I
Oh
drank.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I didn't understand it. I just remember sitting there and being like, man, I really want another one.
Hmm.
And I just didn't know
Yeah.
why. Um, by the time I got to my last year, I remember feeling I tried to quit and I ended up talking to a doctor and ended up staying. But I just actually talked about it on social media for the very first time ever about my last year junior and how I wanted to quit and how I should have got professional help. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what. Do you remember sitting there? Did you have that be like something's wrong? Or did you just say, okay, I'm just gonna drink? Or did you just say, holy cow, I'm changing? Like, did you ever have that realization?
Yeah. I think I think it was more so I'm changing. Like I think like a mixture of something's wrong, but I think I'm changing too because there was a point where I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror anymore, and I didn't recognize who I was and all my values and all my, little things that built up who Tanner was gone. Like especially as the hockey player, not just the person, but the hockey player. I was such a hard ass in the gym. Like I never made teams based on skill. It was work ethic. I always made teams based on how hard I worked. And by the end of my second year, I wasn't working out anymore. I wasn't doing the little things. I wasn't shooting pucks. I wasn't watching video. I had no desire. And then I also couldn't recognize myself anymore. Just waking up and hearing things you did, and you can't physically see it, but then you hear these things and then you kind of think it's like that doesn't even sound like me. Like I can't even recognize this person anymore. And I had a lot of self-hatred and a lot of, I don't know, doubts of myself, and I didn't like who I was, and I didn't know why I was doing what I was doing to myself. And I touched on it briefly earlier. You get older and you kind of look back on things and you learn things, and that's a form of traumatic event in my life. And I didn't know that at that time in my life, but just kind of learning what I've been learning, that was a traumatic event that took place in my life during my junior career, just having to move around. And what may be traumatic to me may not be traumatic to you, but what's traumatic to you may not be traumatic to me, but they have the same equivalency. So I think I had a hard time understanding that what was happening to me may not seem very important to other people, but what's important to them may not be important to me, but they're the same equivalency amongst each other.
Hmm.
And I actually talked to Paulie O'Byrne. He's the mental health coach for the London Knights. And I had him on an Instagram live, and he brought up a really good point that you can never compare stories because
No.
everybody's story is valid. And I think it was Paulie. He was touching on how he went to AA, or it may have been one of my other buddies, and he's sitting there in AA or NA, and he's hearing, I lost my kids, and then I lost my wife, and then I think it was actually my buddy. He was sitting there, and he's like, "Why am I here?
Mm.
Like, why is I have days where I don't feel good about myself, and this guy just lost his wife, and this guy just lost his kids, and he lost his license. Like that's nothing compared to what these people are going through." And yes, but what happened to them and how big of an impact that had on their life, what's going on with you is the same level. It's just different, right? So I think that was the toughest thing for me, was accepting that yes, it may not be important to other people, but to me, it was. And it may be the top tier problem for me, and it may not seem the same for somebody else, but what their top tier problem is for them, it's the same balance.
You know, I just want to highlight what you just said there, and for people that are listening, it's your story matters. Your story is important. Your story is unique, and we all have different starting points in life, and we all deal with our mental health differently. But that doesn't mean that because your trauma is not as big as maybe somebody else's trauma, like you say, like maybe a car accident, you lose a loved one, something like that, doesn't mean it's not valid. Your feelings are valid. Everything that you feel is valid to you, regardless what anybody else thinks of it. It's still valid to you, but you got to deal with those feelings. Don't push them aside. Don't compare them. Don't run from them. Don't hide from them. You got to face them, and that's probably one of the hardest things you can do on your road to recovery. And I'm really happy that you brought that up, and you just talked about what was traumatic for you may not be traumatic for other people. So I appreciate you sharing that with me. I had another question that I was gonna bank off that one, and I forgot what it was. But there's another one. It's what would you say to a younger player coming up who's playing hockey? You know, whether it's be disciplined, whether it's work on your mental health. What would be your core message?
So I'm coaching minor hockey in Calgary, so that's one of the things I've kind of started to do since I got my shit together a little bit. I wanted to get involved with the game again, and I started coaching and doing some skill development stuff with a program here. And the biggest thing is I just want kids to have fun. That's the biggest thing. I think we're living in a day and age where a lot of that's getting forgotten about, especially with the social media. And you see Connor Bedard on TikTok, and you see McDavid has a highlight reel thing every single night he plays. And I don't know, I think a lot of people have this perspective or this thought that, their kid's gonna be there. Or their kid, if I keep doing this and this and this, my kid's gonna make it. But in reality, that's probably not gonna happen, right? I mean,
No.
I think you and I both know that
Point
it's so hard to make the league. It is
point
so
zero
hard.
zero four, I think, is the percentage
Yeah, like it's
that your
it's
kid's
it's
gonna make the show.
crazy. Yeah, and it's crazy, and I don't know, I think a lot of that extra stuff, I mean, we have a facility in the city, and we got a shooting, center upstairs, and then we got one of those skating treadmills, and then we have a big gym. And I think a lot of people forget about why we play this game to begin with, and it's to have fun and to build friendships and relationships and pick up some valuable life skills and learning how to be a good teammate and how to work with others. I think a lot of that stuff gets forgotten, and a lot of people think big picture, and in reality, it's probably not going to happen. Obviously, there's going to be the handful of kids that they're going to get an opportunity and they're going to play pro, or they're going to eventually maybe play in the NHL. But for most of the hockey population, it's not going to happen. And I think a lot of kids need to just enjoy playing the game. I had a lot of stuff happen to me when I was growing up playing hockey and through my junior career, and I can look back and say, yes, there some of those years were the worst years of my life, but there's positives to take away from everything. And I'm very happy I played and I did what I did. And there's obviously things I wish I would have done differently, but I can't change it now. And I'm actually playing hockey again this year. I'm playing senior double A in Alberta, so I'm looking forward to that. And I mean, if I didn't figure it out and work on myself and take care of myself, I wouldn't be playing hockey right now or trying to play hockey again. So I think the biggest thing is just having fun with it and enjoying it.
Oh, those are all great things. Relationships, connections, memories, fun, and enjoy. And when it stops becoming fun, why are you doing it,
Exactly.
right? Now I want to. I'm really happy that you're playing senior men's. How was that? Was that fun?
Yeah,
Was it different?
well, it's funny. This is a funny story too. So I thought about playing last year or the year before, but it was my first year university, and I kind of wanted to figure out how to, because I didn't know how this is going to work university. So just the workload, and then I'm working, and I'm like, maybe I'll play next year. And then this past year just happened. I didn't play. And then it was right before my rollerblade. I actually went home to my mom and dad's. They just live like 10 minutes away from my girlfriend and and I was talking with my dad. I'm like, yeah, I think I might play hockey this year. Like, I'm thinking about it. He's like, well, Manton put something up on Facebook. So I went on their Facebook and they were having tryouts or camp, but it was during my rollerblades. I'm like, oh shit, like maybe I should just give him a call and see what I can do. So I called the manager and explained my situation a little bit and like sent him my social media so he doesn't think I'm pulling his leg or anything. And then
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, we're having a couple skates before tryouts. Like, just come out to those, and we'll kind of go from there. And I went out to a couple ice times, and super rusty, considering I'd been training to rollerblade. But rollerblading so longevity, and you find a pace, and you stick in that pace. Whereas on the ice, it's quick, go, get to the puck, right? So I did those, and then I came when I got to Calgary. Actually, I had a bunch of people meet me at Boston Pizza right by the apartment just because I can't talk to everyone during the day just because that takes time away from me actually skating. So
Mhm.
I had a big meetup at night, and then a bunch of guys off the team came and said what's up, and the manager came out, and then they were like, yeah, we want you to play this year. So I did that, and then I actually recruited one of my roommates from grade 10 in at Notre Dame. He's playing this year, so it's been fun. And then him and I are playing together on a line, so we got a little bit of chemistry. So it's been good. We had a couple exhibition games last weekend, so I think we're gonna have a good team. And I was actually named assistant captain too, which is crazy. And I don't know. I never thought I'd be in a position where people would look up to me as a leader again. I was thrown in leadership titles as a kid, but then once I got into junior and wrapped up in the drinking, I think a lot of people didn't see that in me. So it's nice seeing that other people see that in me again.
Do you see that in you now?
I think I had a lot of I don't know. I try and downplay myself a little bit, and I've started to accept that, dude, you just rollerbladed across the whole province for something that isn't even for yourself, it's for a bigger picture. And I think that takes a lot of balls to do something like that, put yourself on the line like that. And I lost a lot of friends during that process too. A lot of people that they didn't believe in me, and that they, oh, you can't do that. And I cut them out of my life just because I don't want to have that negativity surrounding me.
They said that
And,
you like your rollerblading journey. They didn't believe in that.
yeah,
What?
there's one, I won't name names, but I
No.
actually, one guy I was pretty close with, he did not, he just didn't believe in it. And like, he's like, oh, you won't be able to do that. And I think it was when I was going from Calgary to Banff, I said I'd do it, I think in 3 days, something like that. Like, oh, you can't do that. Like, you won't be able to do that. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And like, I just, cut him out. And then I don't know, it's funny, when I was the one day I was going from Bassano to Medicine Hat. That's 150 kilometers, and I'm just thinking in my head, screw that guy. Let's prove him wrong. Like, it's in the back of my mind, like, let's prove him wrong. So yeah, there's a couple people that didn't believe in me, but obviously I get a lot of positive reach from other
Mhm.
people too, and people reaching out and asking me questions and sharing stuff. And just, I think that kind of shows me that you are a leader. And it may not be you're a vocal leader, but leading by actions and leading by example is more so my style. And I think I've been doing a good job of that.
Well, I can say from what I know about you, you took your life back and you did what you said you were going to do. You got sober.
Yeah.
You raised almost double the amount of money that you set out to, and you rollerbladed across the province. I'll be
Yeah.
lucky if I can rollerblade up my driveway. But hey, man, no, I really appreciate that. I got one more final question for you, and it's, um, you say work. Do you still work out? Is that a big part of your routine now, or?
I I was. So when I was getting ready for the blade, it was obviously I have to train. I can't just get by maybe getting skating my whole life. I got to actually prepare for it. So I was training pretty much every single day, whether I was in the gym or doing mobility and stretching and rolling out and that kind of stuff. I have been slacking recently. I'm pretty beat up from that rollerblade. I actually got a chiro and massage appointment this week, so I gotta go get sorted out. But I'm gonna start here right away. I just started back up in school, so I'm trying to find out the how I'm gonna balance everything, my schedule with work, school, hockey, and then obviously working out. I'm possibly going to try and actually make a real comeback for hockey next year and try and play somewhere.
Cool.
So I'm gonna start getting ready for that. But yeah, I would say it is a big part of my life. But I gotta get it together here soon.
Hey, time blocking.
Yeah, yeah.
So what does your mental health routine look like now? Now that you know how important it is for you.
Biggest thing for me is just a strong support system. I think you know that as well. Having a support system's huge. I When I played junior, I was known to be a tough guy. I could fight, and that's kind of why I was out there was to protect my teammates and to be that guy. And I thought that I could figure out everything by myself, and I can't. And especially with the drinking and mental health stuff, when I was really struggling, it can eat a guy alive if he's not going to talk about it. So support system's huge. I try and call my buddies once a week just to kind of check in and see how things are going. I think Deej, him and I talk pretty frequently, so we kind of check in and see how things are going. And then I just in the past 2 years, I've started to try and do things out of my comfort zone. So an example would be I took a public speaking class in university
Cool.
before I did all this stuff like social media, and I did it strictly for school. I just hated getting up in front of the class and speaking and presenting projects, and I hated that. So I thought it'd be a good thing for me to learn just for schooling. And then turns out I'm actually doing this stuff now and like talking to schools and hockey teams. So it's kind of funny how the world works sometimes, but just trying to do things that is out of my comfort zone and is a little bit scary, but it benefits me or it's positive for me and it doesn't negatively affect me or other people. I think that's a really big thing. And then just being honest with myself. If I have a day where I'm not doing well, talking about it, being open about it, and especially in a relationship too, I think that if you're gonna put up walls, it might create question marks for that other person, and that other person may think that they've done something wrong, and it could create a whole big problem that isn't even there. So just being open and honest, and if I'm having a day where hey, I don't feel 100%, I can tell my girlfriend like, hey, this is what's going on. I'm not feeling 100%. You haven't done anything wrong. I think that alleviates a lot of problems that can be created that don't even need to be created.
Hey man, everything you just said there, you are wise beyond your words. I can see how they would pick you to be a leader because it takes a lot to be like, hey man, reach for help. Hey, how are you really doing? Hey, you know what? I'm not feeling the greatest today. I may need a second. Can you sit with that? Can you sit with me? Or just give me some space. So I want to thank you for everything you shared. I want to thank you for what you did for Canadian Mental Health Association, raising that money, and I'm super pumped. I'm super proud of you for getting sober, for going back to play hockey, being an assistant captain on a senior men's team. That's no easy feat. I'm gonna guess that you may be one of the youngest players there.
I'm the youngest guy on the team. Yeah.
Yeah, youngest guy on the team, but hey, you can still be a leader by your actions. So thank you so much for coming. And thank you to everyone else who stopped by to listen to my incredible guest today. Tanner Mortenson shares amazing story. Please be sure to check him out, give him a follow, and let him know how he impacted you. I'm going to put all his contact information in the show notes that you see. Reach out to him. If you want a guy to come speak to your hockey club, come speak at your school, reach out. He's lived it. He's been there. He's got a public speaking course. He's already proved that he can speak at places. So reach out to him, or just reach out and let him know how this episode impacted you. If you like this podcast, please like it, share it, comment it on all your platforms so we can spread this message. Thanks to everybody for stopping by for the Stronger You Project, and have a great day.